They whispered behind gloved hands at church. Barren womb cursed blood-damaged goods. Emma Hartwell had heard it all, but she had not expected them to exhume her like a leper. The rain came down in sheets that October
The storm is
afternoon
fierce
when
tonight.
Emma loaded her
But we are
belongings into
safe
Reverend
here.
Hayes's
As
wagon.
long as we're together.
It was not much. 2 worn dresses, a quilt her mother had stitched before the fever took her, a Bible with her wedding ring pressed between the pages, and a small wooden box containing letters from a husband who had loved her fiercely for 3 years before a logging accident claimed his life. Clearwater Ridge, Montana, population 473, watched from windows and doorways as Emma climbed onto the wagon seat. She did not look back. There was nothing in this town worth turning around for anymore. "It is for the best, Emma," Reverend Hayes said, his voice carrying that particular tone of condescension reserved for those he considered his moral inferiors. "James Brennan needs help managing that ranch. And you need a roof over your head. The boarding house cannot keep extending charity forever." Emma's jaw tightened, but she kept her eyes fixed on the muddy road ahead. Charity. That is what they called it when they wanted to feel virtuous about getting rid of a problem. And Emma Hartwell had become Clearwater Ridge's favorite problem the moment Dr. Fletcher had pronounced her barren. It had been 8 months since that humiliating examination conducted at the insistence of her late husband's brother Richard, who had made it clear that if Emma could not produce an heir, she had no claim to remain in the Hartwell home. Never mind that she had nursed Richard's children through scarlet fever while his wife recovered. Never mind that she had managed the household accounts and kept the farm running after Daniel died. None of that mattered once the doctor confirmed what Clearwater Ridge had suspected. "Mrs. Hartwell's womb is inhospitable," Dr. Fletcher had delicately phrased it. "Broken, useless. James's place is 20 miles west." Hayes continued, oblivious or indifferent to Emma's silence. "Remote, certainly, but he has agreed to the arrangement. You will keep house, tend the garden, help with meals. He will provide room and board. It is a Christian solution for you both." A Christian solution. Emma wanted to laugh at the absurdity. This was not charity. It was exile. The town had decided she was an embarrassment, a constant reminder of failure, in a place where a woman's worth was measured in children and propriety. So they were shipping her off to James Brennan, a man so broken by grief that he had become a ghost story the children whispered about. Everyone in Clearwater Ridge knew Cole's history. 5 years ago, he had been different. Younger, lighter, quick with a smile. He had married Grace Morgan in a ceremony that had half the territory talking about the beautiful bride and her devoted groom. They had built a small ranch on the western edge of the valley, and for 2 years, they had been the picture of frontier happiness. Then Grace had died in childbirth along with their daughter. Cole had buried them both on a hillside overlooking the ranch and had not been the same since. He came into town maybe twice a year for supplies, spoke to no one unless absolutely necessary, and had earned a reputation as a man who preferred solitude to salvation. The perfect match for Clearwater Ridge's unwanted widow, apparently. The wagon lurched through a particularly deep rut, and Emma gripped the seat to keep from sliding. Rain soaked through her shawl, but she did not bother adjusting it. What did it matter? She was already drenched in shame. A little rain would not make much difference. "You know," Emma Hayes said, his voice taking on that pastoral quality he used during sermons, "the Lord works in mysterious ways. Perhaps this is exactly where you are meant to be. 2 souls who have known loss finding purpose together. There is poetry in that. Do you not think I think the Lord has a cruel sense of humor?" Emma replied, her voice flat. Hayes's mouth pressed into a thin line. "Bitterness does not become you, Emma. You should be grateful. James Brennan is giving you a chance when no one else would." There it was, the truth beneath the platitudes. No one else wanted her. Not Richard Hartwell, who had made her feel like a trespasser in her own home. Not the ladies of the church auxiliary who had stopped inviting her to gatherings once her condition became public knowledge. Not the young widower James Sutton, who had courted her briefly before learning she could not give him the family he wanted. Clearwater Ridge had made its verdict clear. Emma Hartwell was damaged goods, and damaged goods needed to be tucked away where they would not remind everyone else of life's cruelties. The rain intensified as they left the valley and climbed into rougher terrain. The road, such as it was, became little more than wagon ruts, cutting through prairie grass and scattered pine. Hayes kept up a steady stream of commentary. Observations about the weather, reminders about appropriate behavior, thinly veiled warnings about maintaining propriety under Cole's roof. Emma let his words wash over her like the rain. She had learned over these past months that silence was often the only dignity left to the powerless. The Brennan Ranch appeared through the rain like a mirage of neglect. The main house, a modest structure of weathered timber, sagged slightly to one side. The barn's roof showed gaps where shingles had blown away. Fencing leaned at precarious angles, and what had once been a vegetable garden was now a tangle of weeds. This was James Brennan's kingdom, a monument to grief slowly collapsing under the weight of memory. Hayes pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the house, and for a long moment neither of them moved. Then the front door opened, and Cole Brennan stepped onto the porch. Emma had seen him before briefly on his rare trips into Clearwater Ridge, but distance and dim memory had not prepared her for the reality of the man. He was tall, lean in the way of someone who forgot to eat regularly, with dark hair that needed cutting and a beard that suggested he had given up caring what mirrors showed him. His eyes, gray as the storm overhead, held no welcome. No hostility either, really. Just a vast, echoing emptiness that made Emma's chest tighten with recognition. She knew that look. She had seen it in her own reflection often enough. Mr. Brennan Hayes called out, his voice bright with forced cheer. "We have arrived. A bit damp, I am afraid, but safe and sound." Cole's gaze moved from Hayes to Emma, and something flickered in those gray eyes. Assessment, maybe, or resignation. He nodded once. "Get her inside. Barn has space for the horse. I will tend it." Without waiting for a response, Cole stepped off the porch and headed toward the wagon, his boots squelching through the mud. He reached up and without preamble lifted Emma's trunk from the wagon bed like it weighed nothing. Hayes scrambled down to help with the remaining bags, eager to discharge his duty and escape back to civilization. Emma climbed down from the wagon unassisted, her boots sinking into the mud. She looked up at the house, her new prison, her new home, whatever it was, and felt the last thread of her old life snap cleanly. The house smelled of old smoke and older loneliness. The main room served as both kitchen and living space, with a cast-iron stove in one corner, a rough-hewn table with 2 chairs and a single armchair positioned near a cold fireplace. Everything was functional, but stark cleaned of any personality or warmth. No curtains at the windows, no rugs on the floor, no photographs or mementos on the mantel. It was a house that had forgotten how to be a home. Cole set the trunk down near the staircase. "Room upstairs, second door. It is clean." "Thank you," Emma said quietly. Hayes bustled in with the rest of her things, making a show of arranging them carefully, as if placement mattered in a house this empty. "Well then," he said, dusting off his hands, "I should be heading back before the roads get worse. Emma, remember what we discussed. Propriety above all. Cole, the church appreciates your charity in this matter." Cole's expression did not change. Was not doing it for the church. Hayes blinked momentarily, thrown. "Yes, well, of course. Still, it is a Christian act, and I needed help." Cole interrupted, his voice flat. "Town needed a place for the widow. That is all this is. No need to make it poetry." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Hayes's face flushed, but he managed a tight smile. "Indeed. Well, I will leave you both to get settled." He nodded to Emma, tipped his hat to Cole, and hurried out the door. A moment later, they heard the wagon pulling away, wheels grinding through the mud. Then silence, broken only by the steady drum of rain on the roof. Emma and Cole stood in that silence, 2 strangers bound by the town's convenience, neither quite sure what came next. Finally, Cole spoke. "Rules are simple. You keep the house, tend the garden when weather allows, cook meals. I will handle the stock and the heavy work. Stay out of my way. I will stay out of yours. No expectations beyond that." Emma met his gaze steadily. "And what about propriety?" Hayes seemed very concerned about maintaining appearances. "Hayes is 20 miles away," Cole said. "And I stopped caring what people think around the same time I stopped caring about most other things. You are here to work, not to be courted, long as you understand that we will get along fine." "I understand perfectly," Emma replied, her voice cool. "I am here because I had nowhere else to go. You are letting me stay because you need an extra pair of hands. Neither of us wants more than that. Is there anything else I should know?" Cole studied her for a moment, and Emma had the distinct impression he was revising whatever assumptions he had made about her. "Your room is the second door upstairs. Mine is the first. Do not go in it. There is a pantry off the kitchen. Supplies are low, but there is enough for now. Well is out back. Water is good. Outhouse is past the barn. Anything else you will figure out. And meals. Breakfast at dawn, dinner after evening chores. Do not bother with lunch. I am usually out working. He paused. I am not a difficult man to cook for. Anything hot and filling will do. Emma nodded. I will make do with what is here and plan better once I know what we have. Suit yourself. Another silence stretched between them. Then Cole picked up her trunk again and headed for the stairs. Get changed into dry clothes. You will catch your death standing around in wet things. He climbed the stairs without waiting for a response, and Emma heard him set the trunk down with a thump before his boots retreated to the first room and the door closed firmly. Alone in the empty main room, Emma let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. This was her life now. This silent, neglected house. This hollow-eyed man who had made it clear she was a convenience, not a companion. This exile the good people of Clearwater Ridge had engineered while calling it charity. Fine. Emma Hartwell had survived worse than loneliness. She had survived love and loss and public humiliation. She had survived being measured against impossible standards and found wanting. She could survive this too. The first days passed in careful distance. Cole left at dawn and returned only for meals, speaking in monosyllables when he spoke at all. Emma cleaned the house with methodical determination, scrubbing away years of accumulated neglect. She organized the meager pantry, mended holes in curtains she found stored in a trunk, and began making the kitchen functional again. On the fourth day, she discovered Grace's garden behind the house. Even overgrown and wild, she could see the bones of something beautiful. Neat rows, good soil, evidence of someone who had cared deeply. Emma knelt in the dirt and began pulling weeds. What are you doing? She straightened, wiping dirt from her forehead. Cole stood 10 feet away, his face carefully blank, clearing the garden. It is too late in the season to plant much, but if I can get it prepared now, it will be ready come spring. Cole's expression went rigid. Leave it. But I said leave it. His voice was harder now, edged with something Emma recognized as pain. That garden is fine the way it is. Emma looked from the overgrown tangle to Cole's face and understood. This was not about vegetables. This was about memory. About leaving one piece of the past exactly as it was, because changing it would mean accepting that Grace was truly gone. All right, she said quietly, I will leave it. Cole's jaw worked like he wanted to say something else, but instead he turned and walked back toward the barn, his shoulders tight with tension. Emma watched him go, then looked back at the garden. She understood what it meant to cling to remnants. She had kept Daniel's letters long after they stopped bringing comfort. She had worn her wedding ring on a chain around her neck for months after Richard made it clear she was no longer part of the Hartwell family. Some ghosts were harder to release than others. The first snow came in early November, a light dusting that turned the brown landscape briefly white. Emma woke to find Cole already outside splitting wood for winter stores. She dressed quickly and went downstairs to start breakfast. When she looked out the window, she saw something that stopped her cold. Cole had cleared the garden. Every weed, every piece of overgrowth, gone. The soil was turned prepared, waiting. He had done it sometime in the night or early morning, working in the cold and dark to undo what grief had preserved. Emma's throat tightened. She knew what that meant, knew what it cost him. When Cole came in for breakfast, his hands were blistered and his face was carefully neutral. Emma set his plate down without comment, but as he reached for his fork, she spoke quietly. Thank you. He did not ask what she meant. He just nodded once and began to eat. It was the first crack in the wall between them. Small, almost invisible. But there. The blizzard hit 3 days later with a fury that made November's snow seem gentle. Emma woke to the house shaking in the wind, frost coating the inside of her bedroom window. She dressed in layers and hurried downstairs to find Cole already fighting with the stove. Damn thing will not catch, he muttered, his breath forming white clouds. Wood is too cold. Emma grabbed kindling and the small amount of kerosene they kept for emergencies. Here, we need heat before we both freeze solid. Together they got the fire going. Slowly, painfully, warmth began to seep back into the kitchen. They stood close to the stove, hands extended toward the heat, neither speaking, as sensation returned to their extremities in painful prickles. Stock, Emma asked finally. Already checked. They are huddled together, but they are alive. Cole flexed his fingers, wincing. Cannot stay like this long, though. If this cold holds more than a few days, we will start losing animals. What can we do? Keep them fed. Keep them together. Pray it breaks. He looked at her seriously. And we both need to be more careful. Cold like this kills fast. No going outside alone. Understand, if one of us gets hurt or disoriented, the other needs to be there. Emma nodded. The unspoken message was clear. Out here, they only had each other. By evening, the temperature had dropped even further. The upstairs rooms were uninhabitable, frost thick on every surface. Cole stared at the stairs, then at the fireplace, clearly uncomfortable with what he was about to suggest. We both sleep down here tonight, near the fire. It is not proper, but proper does not matter much when you are dead from cold. You are right, Emma said simply. Let us bring down bedding. They made pallets on opposite sides of the fireplace, maintaining what distance they could while still benefiting from the heat. Emma wrapped herself in every blanket she owned, fully dressed, including her coat, and still shivered. Across the room, she could hear Cole's teeth chattering. This is ridiculous, she said finally. We are both going to freeze to death 10 feet apart out of stubbornness. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting that shared body heat is the difference between surviving and dying, and I would rather survive. She grabbed her blankets and moved to his side of the fireplace. This is practical. Nothing more. Understood, Cole said after a moment's hesitation. They arranged the blankets to create one larger pallet and laid down back to back, sharing warmth without impropriety. It was awkward at first, both of them rigid with awareness of the other's presence. But as genuine warmth finally began to penetrate, the cold exhaustion won out. Emma awoke once in the night to find she had rolled over in her sleep and was pressed against Cole's back, one arm thrown across him. She started to pull away, but he spoke quietly in the darkness. Do not. You will get cold again. So she stayed, and eventually drifted back into dreamless sleep, warmer than she had been in months. Morning brought slightly less brutal cold, though still far below freezing. They woke tangled together, Emma's head somehow tucked under Cole's chin, his arm wrapped around her. For a moment, neither moved, caught in that space between sleep and waking, where normal rules felt suspended. Then Cole cleared his throat and carefully extracted himself. I will check the stock. I will make coffee. The cold snap lasted 4 more days. Each night they slept by the fire, sharing warmth and blankets. Each morning they pretended it was purely practical. And each day they found themselves working in closer harmony, anticipating each other's needs, moving like partners who had been together for years rather than months. When the weather finally broke and temperatures rose to merely freezing rather than deadly, they moved their sleeping arrangements back upstairs without discussion. But Emma found herself lying awake in her cold room, missing the warmth and the steady sound of Cole's breathing beside her. Christmas came quietly. Cole brought in a small pine tree and set it in the corner without explanation. Emma created decorations from whatever she could find. Paper cut into snowflakes, dried berries strung on thread strips of fabric tied into bows. That evening, Cole stood in the doorway studying the little tree. Grace would have liked it, he said finally. I hope so. He was quiet for a moment. She would have liked you too. You are practical, like she was, did not complain about hard work or isolation. Emma felt warmth bloom in her chest. From Cole Brennan, a man who spoke so rarely and revealed so little, that was high praise indeed. On Christmas morning, Emma found a small wrapped package beside her plate. Inside were 2 pairs of wool socks, hand-knitted with careful stitches. Your feet are always cold in the morning, Cole said when she looked up at him, stunned. I noticed. Emma's vision blurred. I did not get you anything. You gave me a place that feels less empty. That is gift enough. But after breakfast, she disappeared upstairs and returned with something wrapped in old cloth. It is not much. Made it during the storm. Cole unwrapped it to find a small wooden box, its surface smooth and carefully carved, with a pattern of leaves and flowers. The craftsmanship was exquisite. For your letters, Emma said quietly, the ones you keep from Daniel. Figured they deserved something better than being loose in your trunk. Cole's hands trembled slightly as he held the box. This is beautiful. It is nothing compared to what you made me, but it is perfect. He looked at her and Emma saw something new in his eyes, something like hope. Thank you, Emma. They stood there, 2 people who had been trying so hard not to care about each other, holding Christmas gifts that proved they had failed at not caring. February arrived with the first hints that winter might eventually end. The days grew incrementally longer, and occasionally the sun broke through clouds with enough force to make the snow sparkle. Emma caught Cole studying the cleared garden one morning, a thoughtful expression on his face. Planning for spring, she asked, coming to stand beside him. Thinking about it, we will need more than what is in that garden to make it through next winter. Should expand it. Maybe add a second plot closer to the water source. Emma noted silently. Not you, Witemu. That sounds good, she said aloud. They spent the next weeks planning and preparing. Cole drew sketches of expanded garden plots. Emma inventoried their supplies and made lists of what they would need. It felt good to plan for a future. To assume they would both still be here months from now. One evening in late February, as they sat by the fire after dinner, Cole did something unprecedented. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a bottle Emma had not known he owned. To surviving, he said, handing her a glass. Emma raised hers. To surviving. They drank and the whiskey burned warm all the way down. Cole set his glass down and looked at her. I needed help. That is what I told Hayes, what I told myself. But that was not the whole truth. Emma waited, barely breathing. I was dying out here, he continued. Not physically, but in every way that mattered. And then you showed up in the rain, soaked and angry and refusing to be ashamed. And you, he stopped searching for words. You made this place feel less like a tomb. You did the same for me, Emma said softly. Clearwater Ridge wanted me to disappear, wanted me to accept that I was broken and worthless. But you never looked at me that way. You just let me work. Let me be useful. Let me be myself. You were never broken. Cole said, his voice fierce. Never. Their eyes met across the firelight. The air between them felt charged electric with possibility. Cole stood and crossed to her side of the fireplace. He knelt beside her chair and took her hand. Emma Hartwell, I know this is not proper courtship. I know we are supposed to wait longer, grieve longer, be more certain. But I am certain that you are the strongest woman I have ever known. I am certain that I want to wake up to the sound of your voice every morning for the rest of my life. I am certain that the door burst open in a blast of wind and snow. Both of them jumped to their feet. A figure stumbled through the doorway, collapsing onto the floor in a heap of frozen fabric in desperation. Cole rushed forward and carefully turned the person over. It was a girl barely more than a child, with dark hair matted with ice and skin the color of marble. Her lips were blue, her eyes were closed, and her belly, even through the thick coat, was unmistakably swollen with late pregnancy. Dear God, Emma breathed, dropping to her knees beside them. She is with child, very far along. Cole's face went white. Emma, I know. Emma pressed her fingers to the girl's neck, feeling for a pulse. It was there, weak and thready. Get blankets, hot water. Check the horse, there might be the supplies in the saddlebags. They worked in practice coordination, warming the girl slowly, carefully, trying to bring her back from the edge of hypothermia. She remained unconscious, her breathing shallow but steady. Cole returned with a small bundle from the saddlebags. Inside was a torn dress, a few coins, and a piece of paper with shaky handwriting. Emma read it quickly, her expression growing grim. Her name is Hannah. She ran away from some place called Redemption House. Says she was sent there when her family discovered her condition. Says they were going to take her baby and she would never see it again. She is trying to reach her aunt in Sheridan. Emma continued, her voice tight. But that is 60 miles north. She would never make it in this weather. She nearly did not make it here, Cole said quietly. Another hour in that cold, and she would be dead. They spent the rest of the evening tending to Hannah, slowly warming her, getting small amounts of warm broth into her when she was semi-conscious enough to swallow. By midnight, her color had improved slightly and her pulse was stronger, but she still had not fully woken. Emma sat beside her through the night while Cole dozed fitfully in his chair. The girl was so young, maybe 18 at most. What desperation must have driven her to ride through a Montana winter alone? Dawn was breaking when Hannah finally opened her eyes. They were brown and filled with immediate panic. It is all right, Emma said quickly, placing a gentle hand on Hannah's arm. You are safe. You collapsed outside our ranch. You have been unconscious for hours. Hannah's hand went immediately to her belly. The baby is fine, as far as I can tell. You need to stay calm. But Hannah was trying to sit up, her breathing rapid. I have to go. They might follow me. If they find me, they will take... She gasped suddenly, her face contorting in pain. Emma knew that look. When did the pain start? Yesterday. Before I left, I thought, Hannah cried out again, her body curling around her belly. Cole Emma's voice cut through the early morning quiet. The baby is coming. Cole appeared in the doorway, his face white as snow. His eyes locked on Hannah's swollen belly, and Emma saw the terror there. The memories flooding back. Grace, Rose, blood and screaming and loss. I cannot, he whispered. Grace, I cannot watch another woman. Cole. Emma's voice cut through his panic like a blade. Look at me. He met her eyes. This is not 5 years ago. Hannah is not great. And we are not going to let anyone die. Do you understand me? His breathing was ragged, but he nodded. I need clean linens. Hot water. That medical kit we have in the pantry. Then you are going to help me bring this baby into the world. What do I... You are going to trust me. Emma held his gaze. Can you do that? Cole stared at her for a long moment. Then something shifted in his expression. The terror receded, replaced by determination. He nodded sharply. What do you need? Everything I just said. And Cole, she reached out and gripped his hand. I need you to be strong. For her, for the baby, for all of us. He squeezed her hand once, then moved with purpose to gather supplies. Emma turned back to Hannah, who was panting through another contraction. Listen to me, I need you to tell me the truth. How far apart are the pains I do not know? Maybe 10 minutes. They are getting closer. All right, that is actually good. It means your body knows what to do. Emma kept her voice calm, confident, even though her heart was hammering. I am going to examine you, see how far along you are. Is this your first baby? Hannah nodded, tears streaming down her face. I am scared. I know. But you are strong. You proved that by making it here. You are going to keep being strong, and I am going to help you. And in a few hours, you are going to meet your baby. Can you do that? Yeah, Hannah whispered. Yes, I can do that. The hours that followed tested everything Emma had learned from watching the midwife in Clearwater Ridge. Hannah's labor progressed in waves of pain that grew closer and more intense. Between contractions, the girl told her story in gasps and fragments. My father is Edward Whitmore, Hannah said, her voice tight. He owns half the mines in Silver Creek. When he found out about the baby, he said I had shamed the family, destroyed our name. Another contraction hit. Emma coached her through it, counting breaths, wiping her forehead with cool cloth. He sent me to Redemption House, Hannah continued when she could speak again. Told everyone I was visiting relatives back east. But it was not a home. It was a prison. They were going to take my baby the moment he was born, sell him to some wealthy family, and tell me he died. How did you know to come here? Emma asked gently. I heard two of the matrons talking. They mentioned a rancher who lived alone west of Clearwater Ridge, a bitter man who would not ask questions. Hannah's eyes found Emma's. I thought if he was bitter, maybe he would understand what it meant to lose something. Maybe he would not turn me away. Cole, who had been standing silently in the doorway, spoke for the first time in hours. You were right. We would never turn you away. As dawn broke fully, Hannah's contractions became almost continuous. Emma could see the exhaustion taking hold, the girl's strength fading with each wave of pain. I cannot, Hannah sobbed. I cannot do this anymore. I am too tired. Yes, you can. Emma gripped her hand hard. Hannah, look at me. You rode through a Montana blizzard alone to save your baby. You survived cold that kills grown men. You are the bravest person I have ever met. You can finish this. She is right, Cole added, his voice rough with emotion. Do not give up now, not when you are so close. Hannah drew a shaking breath and nodded. For my baby, for him. The sun was climbing above the eastern mountains when Theodore came into the world. He emerged into Emma's waiting hands with a furious cry that filled the small house with life and hope. You did it. Emma laughed, tears streaming down her face as she wrapped the baby in clean cloth. Hannah, you have a son. You have a beautiful, perfect son. Hannah was crying too, her arms reaching out with desperate need. Emma placed the baby against her chest and the girl's face transformed. All the pain, all the fear, all the exhaustion melted away, replaced by pure wonder. Hello, Theodore, Hannah whispered. Hello, my brave boy. I am your mama. Cole stood frozen in the doorway, his face wet with tears he made no effort to hide. Emma understood what he was seeing. Not just a successful birth, but redemption, proof that not all labors ended in tragedy, that sometimes courage and hope were enough. Emma moved to Cole's side and took his hand. They are both alive, both safe. We did it. You did it, Cole corrected softly. You saved them both. The days that followed fell into a gentle rhythm. Hannah recovered with the resilience of youth, though Emma noticed things that worried her. The persistent cough, the fever that came and went, the way Hannah sometimes pressed her hand to her chest as if it hurt to breathe. But when Hannah held Theo, all signs of illness seemed to fade. She nursed him, sang to him, whispered promises about the life they would have together with Aunt Ruth and Sheridan. Emma found herself drawn to the baby in ways she had not expected. When Hannah needed to rest, Emma would hold Theo for hours, marveling at his tiny fingers, his perfect ears, the way he would grip her thumb with surprising strength. One evening, Cole found her by the fireplace with Theo asleep against her shoulder. He stood watching for a long moment before speaking. You are good with him. He makes it easy, Emma replied, not looking up from the baby's face. I never thought... She stopped her throat tight. Never thought you would get this chance, Emma nodded. The doctor said I could not have children, could not nurture, could not be a mother. But holding him like this... She finally looked at Cole. It feels right, natural. Like maybe the doctor was wrong about more than just my body. He was wrong about everything, Cole said fiercely. Being a mother is not about what your body can do. It is about this. The way you fought to save his life. The way you hold him like he is precious. The way you look at him like he is the most important thing in the world. He paused, then continued more quietly. If Hannah asks, if she decides she cannot take him with her, I think we should say yes. Emma's breath caught. Cole, that is. I know it is complicated. I know it would change everything. But Emma, I watch you with him, and I think maybe we could do this. Together, we could give him a home, a family. Before Emma could respond, Hannah appeared in the doorway. She was wrapped in one of Emma's shawls, and her face was pale in the lamplight. I need to talk to you both, she said quietly. They sat at the kitchen table, an unlikely trio bound by circumstance and desperation. Hannah held Theo close, her eyes red from crying she had clearly done in private. I cannot take him with me, she said without preamble. I have thought about it every way I can, and there is no path forward that ends with both of us safe. Hannah, you do not have to decide. Please. Hannah held up a hand. Let me say this while I still have the courage. My Aunt Ruth is 70 years old and barely surviving on a widow's pension. She cannot take in a baby. And she stopped, her voice breaking. I have no money, no prospects, no way to care for him. You could stay here, Emma offered. We could help you. No, Hannah shook her head. You have done so much already, more than I had any right to ask. But I need to know he will be safe, not just for now, but for always. She looked between Emma and Cole with desperate hope. I have watched you these past weeks. The way you work together. The way Emma sings to him when I am too tired. The way Cole made that cradle with his own hands because he wanted it to be perfect. You are good people, strong people. Hannah's tears fell freely now. I love him more than I thought it was possible to love anything. And because I love him, I need to give him to people who can give him what I cannot. A real home, a real family, a future. Emma reached across the table and gripped Hannah's hand. If we do this, he will always know about you. We will tell him about his brave mother who loved him enough to make the hardest choice in the world. He will know you did not abandon him. You saved him. Thank you, Hannah whispered. Thank you both. But there was something else in Hannah's eyes, something Emma recognized from when her own mother had been dying, the knowledge that time was running out. Hannah, Emma said carefully, your cough, the fever, let me examine you properly. It is just weakness from the birth. It is not. Emma kept her voice gentle but firm. Please, let me look. In the privacy of Emma's room, Emma conducted a thorough examination. What she found confirmed her worst fears. The blood-flecked cough, the night sweats, the way Hannah's breath rattled in her chest. Consumption, advanced and spreading fast. When they returned to the kitchen, Cole read the truth in Emma's expression. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. How long? Hannah asked quietly. Emma could not lie to her. Weeks. Maybe a few months if you rest and take care. But the journey to Sheridan will kill me. Hannah nodded as if she had already known. That is why I need to do this now, while I still can. 3 days later, Emma helped Hannah write a formal letter of consent. Hannah's handwriting was shaky, but the words were clear. She named Emma and James Brennan as Theodore's guardians, relinquishing all parental rights and asking only that they love him and tell him about her when he was old enough to understand. They arranged for Hannah to travel north with a family heading to Sheridan. Emma packed food, warm clothes, and pressed their meager savings into Hannah's hands despite her protests. The morning of departure arrived too quickly. Hannah held Theo one last time, memorizing every detail of his face. She whispered something in his ear that made her weep, then kissed his forehead with infinite gentleness. Love him, she said, handing Theo to Emma with trembling hands. Love him twice as much as you already do. Once for you and once for me. We will, Emma promised, her own tears falling. I swear we will. Hannah climbed into the wagon without looking back. Emma watched until the wagon disappeared over the horizon, understanding for the first time what true love looked like. The kind that let go because holding on would hurt more. Cole put his arm around Emma's shoulders. Together they looked down at the baby in her arms, their son now, chosen through courage and circumstance and desperate hope. What do we do now? Emma asked. We raise him, Cole said simply. Together, we raise him right. The transformation happened gradually but unmistakably. The house that had been a tomb became a home. Theo's cries at all hours shattered the silence that had defined the Brennan Ranch for 5 years. Emma sang lullabies her mother had taught her. Cole read aloud from the almanac in his low, steady voice because it was the only book they owned, and the baby seemed to like the sound. They took turns during the long nights. Emma would come downstairs at 2 in the morning to find Cole asleep in his chair, with Theo on his chest, both of them peaceful. Cole would wake at dawn to hear Emma humming in the kitchen, the baby propped in a basket while she cooked one-handed. It was exhausting. It was chaotic. It was the most alive either of them had felt in years. One morning, Cole announced he was building a cradle. He spent every spare moment in the barn working by lamplight after chores. Emma heard the saw, the hammer, the sound of wood being shaped with love and precision. When he finally carried the finished cradle inside, Emma's breath caught. It was beautiful beyond anything she had expected. Smooth pine sanded to silk joints, fitted with masterful skill posts carved with delicate flower patterns. Cole, she whispered. It is perfect. He set it near the fireplace and rocked it gently. Figured he should sleep where he can see us both. Where he knows he is safe. Us both, not Emma alone, not himself alone. Us. A family. That evening, after Theo was settled in his new cradle, Cole took Emma's hand and led her to the porch. The March air was cold, but no longer bitter. Spring was coming. Emma, there is something I need to say. She waited, her heart suddenly racing. We should make this legal. For Theo's sake, we need to be married. But more than that, Cole turned to face her fully. I want to marry you because I love you. Because somewhere between that first awful day in the rain and now you became the most important person in my world. Because I cannot imagine my life without you in it. I love you too, Emma said, tears blurring her vision. I tried not to. I thought it was too soon, too complicated. But I failed at not loving you. Is that a yes? She laughed through her tears. Yes, absolutely yes. They were married 2 weeks later in Clearwater Ridge's small church. Hayes performed the ceremony with genuine warmth, his own redemption arc nearly complete. Do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, he intoned. I do, Cole said, his eyes never leaving Emma's face. And do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do, Emma's voice was strong and certain. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Hayes smiled. May God bless this union born of hardship and hope. They rode home with Theo sleeping between them, a family in every sense that mattered. That night in the room they now shared, Cole held Emma close and whispered against her hair. I never thought I would get this again. A wife, a child, a reason to wake up in the morning. Neither did I, Emma replied. But we did. We built it from nothing. From pain, Cole corrected. From loss and loneliness and refusing to give up. From love, Emma said. That is what matters. We loved when the world said we could not. And love won. April arrived with genuine warmth. Emma planted the expanded garden with Theo, watching from his basket in the shade. Cole repaired the barn and added new livestock. The ranch was thriving. Their family was thriving. They were having dinner one evening when hoofbeats approached. Cole stood immediately, his expression wary. They rarely had visitors. Emma followed him to the porch with Theo in her arms. A fine carriage pulled by matched horses stopped in their yard. A man in an expensive suit climbed down his manor, radiating authority and disdain. "Can I help you?" Emma asked instinctively, holding Theo closer. "I am looking for James Brennan," the man said, his eyes sweeping over her dismissively. "I have business regarding a child he is harboring." Emma's blood ran cold. "I am right here." Cole appeared from the barn. "Who are you and what do you want?" The stranger pulled papers from inside his jacket. "My name is Vincent Ashford. I am an attorney representing the estate of Edward Whitmore, recently deceased. I am here regarding his grandson, born to his daughter, Hannah Whitmore, approximately 2 months ago." "Hannah gave him to us," Emma said sharply. "She chose this." Hannah Whitmore was unmarried, ill, and in no condition to make legal decisions. Ashford replied coldly. "Mr. Whitmore made provisions for his grandson before his death. A trust fund, an inheritance, a proper upbringing. The child belongs with his rightful family." "Hannah is his rightful family," Cole said, his voice deadly quiet. "And she chose us. Theodore stays here. I'm afraid that is not your decision to make." Ashford gestured toward the carriage and two large men climbed down. "I have a court order granting temporary custody pending a formal hearing. The child comes with me today, like hell he does." Cole moved to stand between Ashford and Emma. "You will have to go through me first. Mr. Brennan, I urge you not to make this more difficult." Ashford's voice was cold and certain. "The law is clear. You are a rancher with no legal standing, married barely a month to a woman of questionable reputation, harboring a child that does not belong to you. No judge will rule in your favor." Emma felt something crack inside her chest. After everything they had survived, after Hannah's sacrifice, after choosing each other and building a family from broken pieces, some stranger in a three-piece suit was going to take their son because a dead man's gold mattered more than love. "No," she said, stepping forward. "You are not taking him." Ashford sighed with theatrical patience. "Mrs. Brennan, please be reasonable." "Get off our property," Cole said. "Now, before I do something we will all regret. I will return with the sheriff," Ashford promised, climbing back into his carriage. "And when I do, you will have no choice. That child is Edward Whitmore's heir, and he will be raised accordingly. Start saying your goodbyes, Mr. Brennan. You have until tomorrow." The carriage pulled away in a cloud of dust, leaving Emma and Cole standing in their yard, hearts pounding with fear and fury. "They cannot just take him," Emma whispered. "They cannot." But Cole's face was grim. "They can, unless we find a way to stop them." They did not sleep that night. Cole sat at the kitchen table surrounded by papers, writing letters to anyone who might help. Emma paced the floor with Theo, memorizing the weight of him, the smell of his hair, the way he made small sounds in his sleep. "There has to be something," she said for the 100th time. "Some legal argument, some way to fight this." "I am trying," Cole said, his voice tight with exhaustion. "But Ashford is right about one thing. We have almost no legal standing. Hannah's consent was verbal. We have no adoption papers. We just got married. In the eyes of the law, we are strangers who took in a baby." "We are his parents," Emma said fiercely. "That has to count for something." "It should." Cole pushed away from the table and rubbed his face. "But money talks louder than love in most courtrooms. Edward Whitmore was one of the wealthiest men in Montana. His estate hired Ashford because he is good at making problems disappear." "Then we fight anyway," Emma said. "Whatever it takes, however long it takes, I will not give up our son without a fight." Cole looked at her, saw the steel in her spine, and felt something loosen in his chest. "Neither will I." Morning brought unexpected visitors. Thomas Murphy, the neighbor who had once tried to buy their land, arrived at dawn with his hat in his hands. "Heard what happened?" Murphy said without preamble. "About the lawyer, about Theodore." He looked between Emma and Cole. "I was wrong about you both. When you first came together, I thought it was a mistake. Thought you were both too broken to build anything real. But I was wrong. Why are you here?" Cole asked. "To help." Murphy straightened his shoulders. "I will testify at the hearing. Tell the judge what kind of people you are, what kind of parents. If that means standing up against Edward Whitmore's estate, so be it. Some things are worth fighting for." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. You have no idea what that means. I have some idea. Murphy's expression softened. My wife and I, we lost 3 babies before we had our son. I know what it means to want a child, to love one. You two have that with Theodore. Anyone with eyes can see it. 2 days later, Reverend Hayes appeared at their door. He looked older than Emma remembered, as if guilt had aged him. I need to speak with you both, he said, about the hearing and about something else. They sat at the kitchen table while Theo slept in his cradle. Hayes pulled a folded paper from his coat with trembling hands. I have been doing some thinking about the day I brought you here, Emma, about the things I said and did. He looked down at the paper. I told myself it was Christian charity, but it was not. It was cruelty dressed up as virtue. And I am sorry, Emma nodded slowly. Thank you for saying that. There is more. Hayes handed the paper to Cole. Dr. Fletcher came to see me yesterday. He has something to confess, something that might help your case. What is it? Emma asked, her heart beginning to race. Hayes looked at her with something like shame. Emma, you were never barren. Fletcher was pressured by your brother-in-law to give that diagnosis, to justify throwing you out of the Hartwell home. His examination was inadequate, and his conclusion was wrong. Emma felt the world tilt. The room seemed to spin. Everything she had believed about herself, every cruel word Clearwater Ridge had whispered, had been built on a lie. He will testify to it in court. Hayes continued, and I will testify too, about your marriage, about the love in this home, about how God works in ways we do not always understand. After Hayes left, Emma sat in stunned silence. Cole took her hand and held it tight. You were never broken, he said softly. Never. It does not matter now. Emma replied, looking at Theo sleeping peacefully. Whether I can have children or not, he is ours. That is what matters. The following morning brought the most important visitor of all. An elderly woman climbed down from a wagon, moving stiffly but with determination. Emma saw Hannah in the shape of her face, the set of her jaw. Ruth Whitmore, the woman introduced herself. Hannah's aunt. I got your letter. Emma's heart leaped. You came. Of course I came. Ruth's eyes moved to Theo in Emma's arms. That is my great-nephew, and I have something you need for the hearing. They brought Ruth and Sean and fed her. Then the old woman pulled a document from her bag with shaking hands. Hannah came to see me 3 weeks ago, Ruth said quietly. She was dying. The consumption had taken hold, and she knew she did not have long. But before the end, she was determined to do one last thing. Emma's vision blurred with tears. She is gone, Ruth nodded. Died in my arms 6 days ago. But she made me promise to bring you this. She handed the document to Cole. It is legal consent for you to adopt Theodore, written in Hannah's own hand, signed and witnessed by the doctor treating her. Cole unfolded the paper with reverent care. The words were clear despite Hannah's weakness. She named Emma and James Brennan as Theodore's legal guardians, relinquishing all rights and asking only that they love him. This changes everything, Cole breathed. Hannah knew what her father was like, Ruth continued, her voice hardening. Edward Whitmore was a cruel man who cared more about appearances than people. He sent his own daughter away in shame, told her she was dead to the family. Hannah was terrified that if he got control of Theodore, the boy would be raised the same way. Cold, hard, taught to value money over everything else. That is why she chose you, Ruth said, looking at Emma and Cole with fierce approval. She told me she watched you save her son's life with your bare hands, that she saw how you held him, how you looked at each other. She said Theodore belonged with you, not with her father's gold. Will you testify? Emma asked. At the hearing, I did not travel 3 days through spring mud to keep silent. Ruth's smile was grim. I will tell that judge exactly what kind of man Edward Whitmore was, and exactly why Hannah wanted you to raise her son. Sheriff Tom Bradley arrived that afternoon with the official summons. He looked deeply uncomfortable as he handed the papers to Cole. Hearing is set for 3 days from now, he said. Judge Crawford presiding. He is fair, Cole. Tough as nails, but fair. If you can make your case, he will listen. And if we cannot, Emma asked quietly, then I will have to enforce the court's decision. Bradley's expression was sympathetic. I am sorry. For what it is worth, I think what you are doing is right. After the sheriff left, Emma and Cole stood on the porch watching the sunset. Theo was asleep inside, warm and safe. For now, we have 3 days, Emma said. Then we make them count, Cole replied. The courthouse in Clearwater Ridge was packed on the morning of the hearing. It seemed half the territory had come to witness the outcome. Emma recognized faces from town. Martha from the general store gave her a small nod of encouragement. The church auxiliary ladies whispered among themselves. Even some of the ranchers from neighboring properties had come. Emma held Theo close, feeling the weight of all those eyes. Cole's hand rested on her lower back, steady and strong. Ruth Whitmore sat in the front row, her face set with determination. Judge Crawford took his seat at the bench. He was a weathered man in his 60s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He surveyed the crowded room with an expression that gave away nothing. This is a hearing to determine custody of one male infant, approximately 4 months old, currently known as Theodore Brennan Crawford began. Mr. Ashford, you represent the Whitmore estate's claim. State your case. Vincent Ashford stood his bearing confident. Your Honor, this is straightforward. Edward Whitmore was a prominent businessman who established a substantial trust for his grandson before his death. $50,000 to ensure the boy receives proper education and upbringing. The child's mother, Hannah Whitmore, was unmarried and dying when she abandoned the infant. The Brennans had no legal right to take custody. The estate seeks to fulfill Mr. Whitmore's wishes. And what does the estate propose? Crawford asked. Private education at the finest schools, proper socialization among Montana's best families, management of his inheritance until he reaches majority. Ashford smiled thinly. Certainly more than can be offered by a struggling ranch and two people of limited means. Crawford's eyes moved to Emma and Cole. Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, you represent yourselves? We do, Your Honor. Cole stood and Emma rose beside him with Theo in her arms. We cannot afford a fancy lawyer, but we can tell the truth about what happened and why we should keep our son. Proceed. Cole told their story without embellishment. Hannah's desperate arrival in the blizzard, Theodore's birth in their home, Hannah's deliberate choice to place her son with them. Emma added her testimony, her voice steady despite her racing heart. We know we cannot give him wealth, Emma said, but we can give him love, stability, a home where he matters because of who he is, not what he is worth. We can give him a real family. Your Honor, Ashford interrupted smoothly. This is touching but irrelevant. The law is clear. The estate has both legal right and resources. What these people offer is poverty and isolation, hardly in the child's best interest. I would like to call witnesses, Cole said. Crawford nodded. Proceed. Thomas Murphy testified, first speaking honestly about watching Emma and Cole transform their lives. They are the best people I know. That child could not have better parents. Reverend Hayes followed, and his testimony carried the weight of genuine contrition. I sent Emma to the Brennans thinking it was charity. I was wrong. God sent her there to build a family from love, not convenience. I have witnessed their devotion. Their marriage is real. Their family is real. Then Dr. Fletcher took the stand. The courtroom went silent. Your Honor, Fletcher began, his voice heavy with guilt. I need to confess something I should have admitted 18 months ago. I diagnosed Mrs. Brennan as infertile at the insistence of her brother-in-law, who wanted justification to remove her from his home. My examination was rushed. Inadequate. I allowed myself to be pressured into giving a diagnosis that was medically unsound. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Crawford gabbled for order. Are you saying you falsified a medical diagnosis? The judge demanded. I am saying I failed in my duty as a physician. Fletcher looked at Emma. Mrs. Brennan was treated shamefully based on my inadequate work. I have carried that guilt ever since. She deserves better than what this town gave her. Emma felt Cole's hand tighten on hers. The truth was out, not just for the judge, but for everyone in Clearwater Ridge who had judged her, pitied her, dismissed her as broken. Finally, Ruth Whitmore took the stand. Small and elderly, but fierce as a winter storm. Tell us about your niece, Crawford said gently. Hannah was raised by a cold, cruel father who cared more about his reputation than his daughter's happiness. Ruth's voice trembled with anger. When she got pregnant, Edward sent her away in shame, to a place that would take her baby and tell her he died. Hannah knew what her father was. She did not want Theodore raised that way. Ruth pulled out Hannah's letter and the courtroom leaned forward to listen. I watched them save my son's life with their bare hands and their courage. Ruth read, her voice breaking. I watched them love him when they did not have to. Theodore belongs with them, not with grandfather's gold. Tell them to love him twice as much. Once for them and once for me, silence filled the courtroom. Even Ashford looked shaken. This letter was written 3 days before Hannah died, Ruth said, handing the document to the judge. Properly witnessed and notarized. It is her final wish, her legal consent for the Brennans to adopt Theodore. Crawford read the document with meticulous care. Then he looked up at Ashford. Mr. Ashford, do you have any evidence that the Brennans are unfit parents? Ashford hesitated. No, Your Honor. But the child's inheritance can be held in trust and managed appropriately. Crawford interrupted. The child does not need to be raised by the estate to inherit. He looked at Emma and Cole, his expression unreadable. I have heard enough. The courtroom held its breath. Emma's heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. I have presided over many custody cases, Crawford said slowly. Most involve neglected abuse, unfitness. This case is different. This is about whether wealth should supersede love, whether a dead man's wishes should override a dying mother's choice. His voice grew stronger. Hannah Whitmore's written consent is valid and binding. Edward Whitmore's documented cruelty toward his daughter undermines the estate's moral claim. And from everything I have heard today, the Brennans have demonstrated extraordinary fitness as parents. Crawford's gavel came down like thunder. Full custody is granted to Emma, Amy, and James Brennan. Adoption proceedings may proceed immediately. The Whitmore estate will maintain the trust fund until Theodore reaches majority but will have no say whatsoever in his upbringing. Case dismissed. The courtroom erupted in cheers and gasps. Emma collapsed into Cole's arms, sobbing with relief. Theo, sensing the emotion, began to cry. But they were good tears, relief and joy and overwhelming gratitude. Sheriff Bradley approached with an actual smile. Congratulations. He is all yours. He always was, Cole said, his voice thick with emotion. Vincent Ashford stopped them on the courthouse steps. He looked defeated but strangely at peace. You won fairly, he said, and perhaps rightly. I thought I was protecting the child from poverty, but I see now he is already protected. By you. Thank you, Emma said quietly, for understanding. Ashford nodded and walked away, leaving them standing in the spring sunshine with their son safe in their arms. 6 months passed like a beautiful dream. The ranch thrived under their combined effort. The garden produced more than they could eat. New livestock grazed in expanded pastures. The house that had been so empty when Emma arrived now rang with Theo's laughter and their voices raised in song. One autumn evening, Emma and Cole sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the Montana sky in shades of gold and rose. Theo was crawling now, getting into everything, his personality emerging bright and curious. Do you ever think about what they said? Emma asked. That we were the broken ones? Every day, Cole replied. And every day I realized they were wrong. We were not broken. We were just waiting for the right pieces to fit together. Theo is growing so fast, Emma said, watching him play. Soon he will ask about Hannah, about where he came from, and we will tell him the truth. Cole took Emma's hand, that his birth mother loved him so much she gave him the best life she could, that she was brave and strong and made the hardest choice anyone can make. Emma smiled and took a deep breath. There is something I need to tell you. Cole turned to her, concern flickering in his eyes. I am pregnant, Emma said softly. Dr. Fletcher confirmed it yesterday. He was right. I was never barren. Cole's face transformed. Shock gave way to pure joy. He pulled Emma into his arms, laughing and crying at the same time. Another child, he whispered. A brother or sister for Theo. But Cole, Emma said, pulling back to look at him seriously. Theodore is our first child. Blood or not, that never changes. Never, Cole agreed fiercely. He is ours. Always has been. Always will be. They sat together as darkness fell, watching their son play in the yard they had built from nothing. The town that exiled Emma had meant it as punishment. Instead, they had given her everything. A partner who saw her strength. A son who needed her love. A future she thought impossible. Clearwater Ridge had sent the barren bride to the bitter cowboy as a joke. But jokes have a way of revealing truth. And the truth was simple. Family is not born. It is chosen, fought for, and built from courage, hope, and love that refuses to surrender. Emma looked at Cole, at Theodore, at the life they had created together. They had been called broken, worthless, damaged beyond repair. But from those broken pieces, they had built something whole, something beautiful, something that would endure long after everyone who doubted them was gone. They were home, they were whole, they were family, and that was everything.